Original than they out in dog out if you put the whole iron pan them. Me can't live in a pig.
Good morning, everyone. You're listening to Trace Elements Radio live today on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Studio A, which you probably know if you're listening to me there, because you know where you are. Trace Elements Radio, of course, and Wolf Spirit Radio. I welcome everybody. You're going to have to bear with me today because we have so much. I've heard that Pride goes before the fall. So if June is Pride, July is fall early. Perhaps the fall begins before the fall. So I have a smattering of gems for you that are hidden amongst the ruins of incredibly too much detailed information. If you want to read more, because I will be skimming over the stuff that I have written for you today. And Lord willing, I will be adding more resource pages to serve as an index soon for newcomers. So in 2015, I remember rushing to my computer overwhelmed by the prophetic metaphors that seemed to be just unveiling themselves before my eyes. Now, at that time, the information seemed so intense, so interconnected, that my mind could not keep up. Like a faucet of metaphor and irony that is now turned into the Niagara herself. This is approaching a worldwide deluge. The Justice Department is replacing Allah with God in the Orlando emergency call transcripts to avoid re-victimization. Now, reading between the lines, it's apparent the only ones being victimized here are the ones who actually care about the truth. Relative truth in an age of deception has robbed those who lack any kind of foundation, and they are being swept away by the reasoning of, I think, depraved minds. So keep in mind here that I will be looking at things that actually happened and things that are implied, like this. 450 years after the birth of King James would be crowned in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. King James reigned in Scotland for 57 years. And King James won the NBA championship 2 days after Prince B died. 57 days after Prince died at age 57. Now the Prince convergence I will cover again. But kings and princes, many numbers abound in these things. Now the original King James was born 450 years to the day our modern version of the King James won this NBA championship. June 19th, 1566. June 19th, 2016. June 19th, Father's Day. June 19th, the start of the full moon, the beginning of solstice, depending on where you are. This is the year of the Father. Unfortunately, the male images that we have seen and that they would like us to focus on are some pretty negative male images. I think we can all agree on that. And I don't think I'm stretching too far to see this is really freaking strange. We could be choosing, and now it's a choice. It's an individual choice, not a choice of a people, not a choice of a nation. It's a one-on-one. Each one of us must choose. So, I was sneak watching the NBA Finals, where a fan was hospitalized after a fight and a fall from the deck. Fall, deck, arc. Oh my God. So, I haven't had a chance to put this up, but I copied and pasted it from Twitter. So Cleveland's terminal tower lights up in Cavaliers colors after the NBA Finals win. They called it at Tower Lights. CLE. Cleveland police, all RTA rail service temporarily suspended for safety reasons. Photo. Cavaliers fans fill Gateway Plaza in Cleveland after NBA championship wins. So let's have some definitions here. Oracle. A person giving wise or authoritative decisions or opinions. Cleveland. Cleave. Make a way through something forcefully, as if splitting it apart. Land. Part of the Earth's surface that is not covered by water, as opposed to the sea or the air. Terminal of a disease predicted to lead to death, especially slowly, incurable. Tower. Rise to or reach a great height. Cavalier. Showing a lack of proper concern. Offhand. Rail service. Train. A series of railroad cars moved as a unit by a locomotive or by integral motors. The train is stuck. No one can move. The gun is trained on you. You have not been trained in the way of wisdom. Gateway. An opening that can be closed by a gate, a means of access or entry into a place. Plaza. Castilian Spanish, basically. Plaza. Latin American Spanish, still the same. Spanish word. Cognate to Italian, piazza. Portuguese, praca. Galician, plaza. Catalan, placa. Romanian, plata. German, Platz. French, place, which also has been borrowed and put into English. The origin of all these words is via Latin, plata, from the Greek, platios, or hobos, meaning abroad, a way, or street. This wisdom, oracle, the pride comes before the fall, second level to first. You are cavalier, the cavaliers, and have ascended to the heights. You climb the tower. Yeah, I think Babylon here. You are a terminal. In the terminal, you have chosen the broad way, the plaza. The train is stuck, rail service, as the enemy weapons are trained on you. The gateway has been opened. You cleave to your land, but your land is divided, united. You stood, now divided you fall. I know, I may be stretching it, but 450 years? It matters, because on the 19th, it was exactly 500 years since the papal bulls that allowed Europeans to take whatever they wanted from any land they wanted. And then, oh yeah, I'm not finished yet. A jaguar from the Amazon was shot after the Olympic torch lighting ceremony. Rare animal. The jaguar warriors, almost to the day, were slaughtered. Probably not to the last man, because it's very hard to kill absolutely everybody. But on the same day that the papal bull, 500 years later, this Olympic torch, this is more the Greek stuff again, this jaguar who was just watching gets shot, dead by a soldier, shortly after the ceremony. So we need to look at these events in the year of the Father and realize what kind of Father we're calling back. Because there is a huge galactic wave from the center of the universe, the multiverse perhaps, that is hitting us right now as we speak. I told you this was coming. It came right on the day, and the Father has heard us. I know a lot of people who listen to me are Christians, and you guys are a forgiving friggin' lot. Because I know I'm not very positive about religions in general. But let's step to this, because it's important. All of the things that are happening now, it's obvious that they want to use your energy to choose. You must choose. This is what they're saying. Do you like black people, or you don't like black people? You like women, or you don't like women? Are you for guns or not for guns? Men are up in arms. Of course they're up in arms. We have a very close interaction with Mars now. Arms, anagram for Mars. Simple. Easy. Almost straightforward. So there is the emasculation deity. Kind of Bacchus, Christianity. A lot of the religions that you might not think are about that. But when you say that you're a Christian, this is one of the reasons why I think you don't know what that means. Because the books that didn't make the European cut require castration. Origin of Alexandria. So this is about 185, 254 CE. And Origen, son of Horus of Alexandria, is considered one of the greatest Christian theologians of all time. Highly respected, has a lot to do with everything that made it into the Bible. He castrated himself in literal obedience to Matthew 19:12. Much debate surrounds Origen, interesting name. Some called him a heretic, a mystic, because his castration was more personal ecstasy, spiritual ecstasy, they called it, mystical marriage, rites of Sibyl, than solely obedience to Matthew. He believed that the devil and all demons could be saved, but not women. And this is pretty much the Apocrypha. what they say. And by the way, this viral story that everyone keeps posting about Syrian refugees raping a 5-year-old is a lie. It's a lie. Never happened. But, keep that racism up. It's working well for you, my brothers and sisters of America. So we are entering the land of enchantment. And I've been doing my best to get to the core of the Lucifer archetype, because it begins with a poem. Milton brings us back to poems and dramas the Greeks wrote, the exact same ones that they wrote of the Titan Prometheus. I have an image up of AT&T and Bell Labs, longtime figurehead, the spirit of communication, aka the genius of electricity, aka the light bringer. This is Lucifer again. We are being pummeled by a male energy that could be called this. It's so powerful that some of the oceans are ringing out now, throwing up their shields or responding in kind. I don't know which. But the Lucifer archetype has been associated with knowledge, technology since antiquity. In a positive light, the Prometheus myth, and a darker sense, Satan, tree of knowledge, in the myth of the fall. The myth of the fall. We're falling a little friggin' early. But which side of this powerful archetype will triumph? I see how powerful men are. This is patience. This is willpower. They will stand behind you. And I have to apologize to the wonderful men in my life, because I have been a effing bitch lately. I have. Oh my God. Yeah, I've been dark side Red Queen. So I have to apologize. And two of my kings are standing by to aid me. So these are the most patient men ever. Because I've been horrible. I've been in pain. When I feel pain, there's no talking to me. There's no reasoning with me. There's no... And, men, this is how men are. They want to help. They see a problem. They want to give you a solution. They want to fix that broken thing for you. When I get in this mood, you can't fix this. I'm even pissed off that you want to try and fix it. But, we stand at these times, so everyone is having a hard time with it. So don't feel alone. If you're stressing or in pain right now, we're with you, brothers and sisters. There may only be 3 of us feeling these things right now, but if it's only 3 of us, it's worth it. Because there are so many signs right now. Crows. What the crow means is way more than death. And people have been saying they've seen a lot of crows. There's been a lot of images of crows lately. I see them all the time. I hear them all the time. And I don't think I'm alone on this, because crows have long symbolized death in many cultures, because carrion birds that feed on dead animals. There are many myths surrounding carrion birds. Ancient ones. We'll go into that too. For example, ravens, vultures, said to symbolize war, death, misfortune. They're said to be depicted as familiars of witches. And of course, all of this is speculation, but if there was something dead, you'd see them circling. Probably had to do with that. But crows are intelligent, like super smart. They have the same body-brain size ratio as chimpanzees, not far off from humans. They have an excellent memory. They remember faces. They know when someone is dangerous. They know when someone is not. Very, very smart animals. Omen of death. When they come out, death has already happened, so I wouldn't call that an omen or a prophecy. This is the bird that carries people, beings, souls, soldiers of the living into the afterlife. Powerful knowledge of changes of life and death, changes of cycles of life. So when the crow appears, it means something big is happening, just like all the earth sounds that are happening now. I realize there's only a small percentage of people that can hear it, but these things are ramping up all over the world because we're being hit by sounds and frequencies. This is a word. This is a magic word. And I can even tell you what your specific magic word looks like, if you like. Close your eyes. Press very lightly against your eyes. Very lightly. Just for a couple seconds, because it might give you a headache. This alone is a form of meditation. When you take your fingers away, you will see light. You will see a shape. You will see a symbol. You will see your magic word. The first words came from that, I think. But anyway, ancient interpretations of what the crow means is change. It's an omen of change. That change has already happened and you need to start seeing it. Ancient magical laws, ancient wisdoms, the true law, not the little crap they put on paper. The real laws are written on trees, and trees speak them. You stand in front of a tree and the tree will tell you the law. They are old. They know things. But cutting them into pieces is a very horrible thing. Very wrong. Even the bills we use for money. This is necromancy, guys. We put dead people's pictures on them. They have a magnetic strip on them, so they bind you. It's a binding spell. This is real deep necromancy. This is magic. This is clairvoyance. This is who runs us, who's running the show. So the crow is an omen of change. You must be reminded that the answers to your questions are waiting. They're here already. You don't have to wait for them. They're waiting for you. Crows not only harbor the message of change, but remind us about the creation and the magic around us. See it or not, like it or not, it's here. The crow's striking black color represents the color of creation. It is the womb out of which the new comes into existence. Black is the color of the night, giving birth to the light of the new day, Father's Day, which had a full moon, and the solstice, and we were hit by some power from beyond. This is the combination. This is the joining event. It has just happened. We don't have to wait for it. It freaking happened. It is more obvious. This isn't one of my, I have to really dig to find it. This is obvious. What could happen to our men right now? And it's all about what we choose to see. Some of them will, of course, evolve. They will. They will change. Because change is happening. Like it or not, know it or not. And with the black crows we are seeing, there's also something else. Because there is the return of the white raven. Ancient prophecy that states when people, enough people, have become spiritual again, that the white raven will return. It is the bird that turned the meat bitter. This is an ancient mundane legend. The ravens are usually completely black birds, right? However, the legend makes mention of the white raven. And Two Dog and I have talked about the white animals. The prophecy in this traditional story is about when the white raven returns. Looking about the lodges in the village, Coyote saw strings of jerked meat. But people were lean. He asked why this was. The people said, when we go hunting, only the fattest butchers can get their meat home. In good condition. Now, this story goes back to a time when we actually could speak to animals. You will look at this as a story, but I think we did. Easy, because some of us still can. And animals respond to us. So, is that not communication? Anyway, there is a raven which flies over calling, "Get bitter, get bitter." Chiba, actually in Mandarin. And the meat turns bitter. Coyote asked for a sample. He chewed but did not swallow the meat. It was bitter. I must have this thing righted. So the stories go on. It's quite a long story. But what happens at the end? The most important part of this. Is that a big spider came, weaved something in the sky. A man sat and lit his pipe for the spider to smoke. The raven lived in a hollow tree, out of which it flew when the men were butchering. The big spider said, "It's easy to snare that bird. Be ready to snare him into the fire and let him burn. Some of his feathers will fly into the air. They will turn into birds. When you see a white raven fly out, cry, at the end of the world there shall be seen a white raven, as a sign that the world is coming to an end, that this will be the last of it." They send out young men to the hills, scouting. They reported buffalo. They made ready for the hunt. The fastest runners encircled the herd. Buffaloes always run towards the wind, but the runners drove them towards other hunters. They formed a corral where they slaughtered the whole herd. The men with large families came out and packed the meat home. Others followed behind. Meanwhile, they watched by the hollow tree. When the bird came out, before it could cry, Coyote caught it by the neck, pulled it to the ground. It had the head of a man and the body of a bird. The face was human, but had no hair. The body had wings and a long neck. It was a frightful thing to see. Coyote clubbed the bird, threw it into the flames. Feathers flew up, turned into birds, and flew away. The unburnt bones Coyote crushed with his club. Finally flew out a white raven and said, "When the world is about to end, I will come to you again." So Coyote told the people that it was a sign. And this earth must end. The violence, the death must end. If we go back not so far, not that long ago, we look at the events of Roswell in July 1947. These events did not happen in a vacuum. They occurred within one of the most extraordinary periods of human history. Particularly from a esoteric point of view, they would spark a chain of events that would change the entire world. We are at those times. So much of the technology we take for granted today emerged from American telephone and telegraphs, Bell Telephone Laboratories, or Bell Labs for short, started 1947 with the first solid-state transistor. Bell's Labs, armies of top flight scientists, engineers, shook the world with one game-changing technology after another. So whether or not you believe that technology came from somewhere else, one thing is clear. Bell Labs, the Roswell event, and the links between them are drenched to the bone in occult symbolism, the same that we're seeing now. So much so that you can't help but wonder if both the skeptics and the believers haven't gotten the story all wrong. So let's look at Plan 9 from Bell Labs. Long after the development of the transistor, Bell Labs was playing with alien and occult symbolism, specifically an operation system that was designed to replace Unix. Plan 9 from Bell Labs is a research system developed at Bell Labs starting in the late 1980s. In Plan 9, each process has its own mutable namespace. A process may rearrange, add to, remove from its own namespace without affecting the namespaces of unrelated processes included in the namespace. Mutations is the ability to mount a connected or connection to a file server speaking 9p, a simple file protocol. Was this an inside joke amongst nerdy programmers, or was it some kind of signal as to the origin of some of Bell Labs' world-changing tech? And before you answer that, remember Bell Labs would take a very strange turn in the 90s. One which creates a spider web of connection, again the spider, leading all the way back to ancient stories of technologies falling from the skies. Two Dog just said he saw a white raven last year. See, I'm not freaking kidding with this shit. Okay, so Lucifer Technologies that I skimmed over. Soon after Plan 9 from Bell Labs was released, Bell Labs became Lucent Technologies. Conspiracy Underground, already reeling from a series of shocks, beginning with George Bush's New World Order speech on 9/11, 1991, went into conniptions, just shaking themselves, shaking like a bobblehead. So in a way, their fears weren't entirely unwarranted here. Bell Labs was playing with fire, literally. The new company name came from the same root as, once again, Lucifer. Lucent wasn't shy about twisting the knife here. Their logo seemed to resemble an Ouroboros, that snake eating its own tail. And they went to town with the conspicuously Greco-Roman underworld references. Because shortly after Lucent renaming in 1996, the Plan 9 project released a development of their work as the Infernal OS, 1997. Inferno. This extended the Lucifer and the Dante references as a series of punning names for the components of the Inferno and some of the ancient gods like Dis, Limbo, Charon, Styx. I knew all this was about, that there was a changeover, that Bell Labs and Lucent were a major part of our lives from then on. But like with so many of these symbolically changed entities, it seemed built to be disassembled, dismantled, discharged. All the wonderful things that the god Dis does. So as a part of some strange ritual or something, let's wind back the clock and put all of this into historical context once again. So following the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, again, the Naga is the blackness, the black snake. Yes, that one. August 1945. The fall is always important. The Japanese would surrender and still get bombed. And World War II would be officially over, if you believe it ever ended. Much of Europe lay in ruins. Tens of millions were dead. The rape of Europe was beginning by the Allied forces in a small, obscure cave in Egypt. The Nag Hammadi Library would be found, December 1945, allowing the ancient Gnostics to speak for themselves after nearly 2 millennia. The U.S. Army Signal Corps, inventors of the modern printed circuit board, would kick off the space age on January 10th, 1946, with Project Diana, in which they bounced radar signals off the moon, our boyfriend, from Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. Now, perhaps knowing Diana was going down, Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard began the Babylon working, Pasadena, California, which lasted from January to March 1946. Some accounts claim that Hubbard and Parsons encountered an alien in the Mojave Desert on January 18th. The same day, Marjorie Cameron appeared at the parsonage. In the middle of the working, the so-called ghost rockets began to appear over Scandinavia. February 26, 1946. Thousands of them would be seen throughout that year, and at least one would be reported as having crashed. Significantly, in the month of July, 2 days after the ghost rocket was sighted, Parsons went alone to the Mojave, where he claimed to have encountered the goddess Babylon, who we've spoken of, whom he said dictated the Liber 49 to him. I haven't read that to you yet, but I have a link if you want to read it. On July 1st, 1946, the U.S. began Operation Crossroads, the testing of powerful nuclear weapons. This would allegedly attract attention of UFOs, who were reported to have deactivated nuclear weapons on occasions in the U.S. and in the Soviet Union. Notice how those two, U.S. and SU, are just kind of flipped. Same guys. Anyway, in folk magic, crossroads are places where you make deals with demons, other dark spirits. Punk-ass crossroad horse. Anyway, starting in November, because we're going through this again, another remarkable series of finds began. This time, Dead Sea Scrolls, sacred texts, Jewish supposedly, sect, known as the Essenes. Their discovery would ultimately create an enormous controversy within the church and without, with one prominent researcher claiming that Christianity was a psychedelic mushroom cult. In December, the Nim. Remember The Secret of Nim? It's after these people. Would declare war on the French occupation, beginning a long, costly conflict that would last for nearly 30 years, have grave consequences for the United States, but mostly grave consequences for those people. On January 8th, 1947, David Robert Jones, better known to the world as David Bowie, was born in England. Also that month, Z Division moved its operation to Sandia Base, later Sandia National Laboratories, primary nuclear lab in the nation. AT&T, Lord of the Air, Lucifer, would run Sandia for the next 5 decades through its Western Electric subsidiary. The Corporal missile, using Jack Parsons' solid-state fuel, was launched May 22nd, White Sands. At least one would be destroyed in the upper atmosphere by, some say, a UFO. I don't know what else it was. Something knocked that out at a time where there was nothing supposed to be up there. So as Peter Levanda points out, this is also the year Sgt. Pepper taught the band to play, 20 years ago today, and that would be June 1st, 1947, for anyone keeping score at home. A month before Roswell incident began, and the month in which UFOs became a national obsession and a term. So on June 21st, Harold Dell claimed to have seen 6 UFOs near Maury Island in Puget Sound. It would earn him the first modern Men in Black encounter. Not so far away, a businessman, Kenneth Arnold, would have his famous UFO sighting, June 24th. Very powerful day in a number of ritual calendars. Then came Roswell. UFO began showing up on radar July 1st, exactly a year after the operation of the Crossroads, Operation Crossroads. Curiously, New Mexico is the 47th state of the Union. As UFO researchers never fail to point out, a National Security Act was signed by President Truman September 18, 1947, ushering in the CIA and the NSA. Shortly after, the U.S. Navy begins Project Chatter, a precursor program to MK Ultra. So October, Arthur Young left Bell Labs, embarked on a path that would lead him to the Council of Nine, which we've talked about. In what may or may not be a coincidence, what reads like the first channel dispatch from the Council of Nine hit the stands the same October in the form of The Son of the Sun, written by an occultist, Millen Cook, published in Fantastic Voyages, edited by Ray Palmer. Also that month, the first use of the computer, as we understand it today, was used. December 1947, Aleister Crowley died in England, his ashes buried in New Jersey. Surely, he knew that the 47th problem of Euclid was of special significance to the Freemasons. I wonder if he appreciated the irony here, because shortly after Crowley died, Bell Labs conjured up the first solid-state transmitter, a device that some insiders would say was guided by outside influences, very much like the ones Crowley had once contacted. Demons of the air. Roswell events themselves so laden with symbolism that one seriously has to wonder if what we saw was in fact some kind of ritual and not any kind of accident at all, that the crash was said to take place on the plains of San Augustine, named after the church father Augustine of Hippo, who wrote extensively on the nature of the demons of the air, which is hitting us right now. Now, legendary UFO guy, John Keel, and I think we've mentioned him before, would claim that the UFO phenomenon was in fact nothing but the latest manifestation of the demons, those demons, the imps, the elves, the lords of the sky, who date back to ancient Mesopotamia. Well, kind of straight out of Babylon again, but we'll get into that. And studied, again, by so-called Assyrianologists. Modern UFO demonologists are primarily evangelical Protestants, but I'm certain they've taken note of Augustine's writings. Augustine would quote the legendary author and magician Apollonius, the author of the Golden Ass, quite extensively in The City of God, when speaking of the nature of daemons, rendered now as demons. Apuleius gave his dissertation on a trial for sorcery, a practice that the Romans did not generally tolerate. But amongst other things, he also says that on them depend soothsayers, prophets, and the revelations of dreams, and from them also miracles of magicians. So speaking on the manners of demons, he said they were like the minds of men, that they are provoked by injuries, propagated by a series of doings, services, by gifts. They rejoice in honors, delighted with a variety of ritual, sacrificial, specially rites, and are anointed. If any of them are neglected, they fight back. So the actual crash took place outside a town called Corona, or crown, speaking of honors. Corona is also named for the glow around the sun or the moon or the stars, but it's also the name of a specific star. In classical mythology, Corona Borealis generally represented the crown given by the god Dionysus, who is one of the warring factions of the father male patriarchal thing going on right now. So given by the god Dionysus to the Cretan princess Ariadne, and set by him in the heavens. Dionysus was not only one of the primary gods of mystery, of all the mystery religions. He offers us many characteristics later attributed to Lucifer, particularly in granting secret knowledge, particularly that of science. For instance, Dionysus, artificers, were a guild who operated throughout Greco-Roman world, who were masters not only of astronomy and geometry, but of architecture. Dionysus also traveled with daemons in his entourage. Daemon, like my son, who turns 25 on the 25th. And I think you will notice too that this year almost every major event is occulted for you. Mysteries are being unveiled for you. So anyway, many have noted that Roswell Army Base was home to, well, of the only atomic bomb wing group in the world at the time. But the etymology of its name itself is highly significant. Wells have a long and lofty place in all the mythological traditions. Pixies, elves, fairies, gnomes, common residents of sacred wells and waterways. Sometimes these spirits, these fairies, also become Christianized by new religion order in Britain. Saint Noet, or Neot, depending on how it's spelled, was said to be only 15 inches tall. 15 inches. Okay.
Down in the valley, up on the hill, I watch the sun go down and feel the thrill. Into the darkness, for what it's worth, come shake the hand that shook the earth. The world keeps taking, I keep giving. I'm just trying to make a living. When I come back home with jewels and mirth, you shake the hand that shook the earth. Come shake the hand, come shake the hand. You shake the hand that shook the earth. Under the sun, they're making records. Up in Graceland, it's chess and checkers. Nailed up on fences, stretched in the girth. Shake the hand that shook the earth. Come shake the hand shake the hand. Come shake the hand that shook the earth. Tobacco roads, fruit of the vine, love running free all the time. Baptist lovers chanting rhythms, holy rollers, Lord, the giving in the riverbed, another bird. Now shake the hand that shook the earth. Come shake the hand. Come shake the hand. Come shake the hand that shook the earth. Come shake the hand. Come shake the hand. Come shake the hand, shook the earth. Tobacco roads, fruit on the vine, love running free all the time. All the time. Oh, Lord. Yeah. Come and shake the hand. Come and shake the hand. Oh, come shake the hand. Shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it. All around the world. Blessings. Yeah. Brothers and sisters.
Try, four, red.
Oops, welcome back everyone. Yeah, I'm screwed up a little bit. So, welcome back. We'll continue. And I have to thank everyone for listening today. It's much appreciated. All your help and your support is important to all of us, and we cherish your attendance in all things. Now, the sacred well. Because the well plays a part, a central part, in most of the religious traditions of our times, especially because this is another anniversary. An anniversary where Rome was almost sacked by the Gauls, where we would be talking about none of these Mesopotamian images or Christianity as we know it. None of it. If the Gauls had won, Europe would be an entirely different place. Britain would be an entirely different place. We would be brothers and sisters and have not been taught to hate each other so much. A horrific loss for us all. So the well plays a part, especially in the traditions now. All the Euclidism mysteries, like Euclid, the mysteries of Demeter, later Isis, Sothis, Demeter, all linked to Sirius, who is in charge right now, and that's why it's so hot. Dog days. And Persephone, queen of hell, wife of Pluto. The sacred well is situated at the south to the great Propolia, which means left from the outside. In classic antiquity, this was thought to be the well of beautiful dances. the Calicorn. The name comes from a legend that when Demeter, who lost her daughter, and desperate, sat down at a well or fountain, women of Euless danced to console her. But the well in question is now thought to be situated in the Telsterion, and I'll get into that another time. Demeter, worshipped, home of the mysteries of the great gods, another figure, also linked to Samothrace, whose adventures brought us right back to Roswell in a very powerful and symbolic way. So many ways. So secret identities, indeed. Here we meet another of the great civilizing figures you see in mythology, such as Enki and Onis and Osiris and Thoth and Prometheus. Cadmus in Greek, Roman, Phoenician mythologies, was a Phoenician prince, the son of a king, King Egnar, and Queen Telesphesia of Tyre, and the brother of Phoenix, Clichis, and Europa. So Telesphesia, it's interesting, right? AT&T. So Ovid refers to Cadmus as the Scythian stranger, a reference to a Phoenician city. He left his home following the same abduction of Europa, after his sister Europa had been carried off by Zeus from the shores of Phoenicia. Cadmus was sent out by his father to find her, and rejoined. And told not to return without her. Cadmus was said to journey to Samothrace, where he, and presumably his mother, were initiated into the great mysteries of the elder gods. Unsuccessful in his search, he came to Samothrace, the island sacred to the great gods, whose mysteries would be celebrated also at Thebes. Cadmus did not journey alone to Samothrace. He appeared with his far-shining mother, Telesphesia. So the original and the origin of Cadmus' name is not entirely certain. One interpretation means that it came from the Phoenician, meaning to shine, which is actually a definition of lucid. Not light bearer, but shining. So in other words, it's not Lucifer Technologies, but in fact Cadmus Technologies, who is a person. What's more, Cadmus had a powerful connection to wells. In this case, the well belonging to the god Mars, once again. And strangely enough, the myth of Cadmus and the Martian well has some strong undertones of genetic engineering, men arising from the teeth of Mars, dragon, and those pesky reptilians bubbling just beneath the surface once again. So, while seeking water, he, Cadmus, came to the fountain of Castilia, which a Draco, the offspring of Mars, Ares, was guarding. It killed the comrades of Cadmus, but was killed by Cadmus with a stone. Mind you, have another story? So under Minerva's instructions, he sewed the teeth, plowed them under. From them sprang the Sparto, These fought amongst themselves, but from them 5 survived, namely Colonus, Uranus, Hypanor, Piraeus, Echelon. On modern fringe ufology, reptilians are said to originate from the Draco system, which is convenient, I guess. So the well of Mars is interesting for another reason. One, I need to mention that being that it is the red planet, of course, also the well of the red planet, or even, if you like, the red well. And know what else is red? I'll give you a hint. Violets are blue. Different picture starts to emerge here. Cadmus would marry Harmonia, an event that the gods themselves would attend. Muses provided entertainment for. This is the reunion of harmony with males. This is the time we're in. Cadmus would then travel the world, initiate mortals into the mysteries, presumably the mysteries of the great elder gods. But you know how those stories end. On a down note. Every damn time. Cadmus, the civilizer, the shining one, the great initiator, would become, you guessed it, a reptilian. Cadmus was troubled by the ill fortune which clung to him as a result of having killed the sacred dragon. And on one day he remarked that if the gods were so enamored of the life of the serpent, the nega, he might as well wish for that life for himself. Immediately he began to grow scales, change in form. Harmonia, seeing the transformation, thereupon begged for the gods to share her husband's fate, and they granted that wish. So the fall. Well, if all this talk of Mars and reptilians and pyramids hasn't scared you off by now, maybe we should learn a bit more about these great gods, the ultimate source of Cadmon's secret knowledge. They were said to be great craftsmen, so they are Cain, and they were sons of Hepatitis, aka Vulcan. The Cabri, or the Cabri, whose native land was Lemnos, and whose principal sanctuary was in Samothrace, were said to have had Hepatitis for a father. Yeah, it later became something awful. Or at least a divine ancestor. Marine powers. They were explicitly identified as crabs by some. The Cabri are crabs, animals particularly honored by Lemnos, where they were held to be gods. It is also said that they were sons of Hepatitis, and like Hepatitis, whose descendants they are, the Cabri are metallurgists. But there's a more salient point here to be made about these great gods. It's how exactly they came to Earth, because the 8 great gods came to Earth from a flaming star, which shattered the rocks when it crashed into the island of Samothrace. There the great gods made their home, the lords of terrifying tempest. So we've absolutely clear on this. Cadmus and Lucians are the same word. Lucian's Technologies is said to have received secret technology from beings who crashed from the sky at Roswell, or the Red Well, or Mars. Cadmus was also to have received secret knowledge from beings who crashed from the sky at Samothrace, and it is connected to the Mars Well. But the father of the great gods also takes us to Lucifer, mythos, because Prometheus carried the sacred flame he gave to humanity from the god of craftsmanship. Again, the sacred fire, which probably means something completely different. The fire, the strength of men. Now, given all this symbolism, ancient parallels, it comes harder and harder to see Roswell as the, something crashing the interstellar station wagon thing. It starts to look like something else completely, something entirely ritualistic, something arcane. It's the great arcana. It's voodoo. And perhaps where all this technology takes us will tell us whether this is Luciferian in the satanic sense or Luciferian in the Prometheus sense, or both sides of the same being. Now remember, the Roman counterpart was Vulcan, a connection which should speak for itself. Its counterpart in Egypt was Ptah, well known to any of my readers, as a model for the Oscar statue. Ptah was also known as the Disk of Heaven, who built the heavenly boats that took the pharaohs to their eternal abode in the stars. Sacred boat could be our bodies, the ark, our car, the body. So an alignment pact. A few years back, I looked at the Barney and Betty Hill abduction, noted parallels between it and Aleister Crowley's time in New Hampshire, town of Hebron. The Hills, interestingly enough, sorry guys, have awakened from their hypnosis. Sorry guys, forgot to turn that off. My bad. So, the Hills claim to have woken from their hypnosis while driving parallel to Hebron on Route 3, now known as Interstate 93. That got me thinking about Roswell again and the issue of coordinates, a bit of an obsession of mine. Alignment is a powerful tool. Researchers have noted alignments of Giza Plateau, Teotihuacan, America's Stonehenge, the Millennia Hotel, Washington, D.C., and other important things. And the late David Flynn looked at the alignments encoded into Roswell from a Christian kind of end of days perspective, connecting it to his belief about the year 2012, and others have picked up on his work. I also have issue with some of his findings, so I decided to look into coordinates myself, not only Roswell but other major landmarks in ufology. The exact latitude for the Roswell crash on the plains of St. Austin, 33.968418, which rounds off to 34 degrees 0 minutes north 34. That is also the exact latitude of Baalbek, the massive monolithic site that is a favorite of ancient astronaut theorists. And again, we see mysteries, and the mysterious Phoenicians appear in a context that makes no esoteric sense. 34 degrees is also the latitude of Sirocco, also a UFO event. The sighting that got the huge amount of attention in 1964 year of my birth. People like Flynn credit Baalbek to the work of the Watchers, who fell to earth at Mount Hermon. That stands 33 degrees, 44 minutes, 57, or 58. So if you follow that line, almost halfway across the planet, you'll find yourself smack dab downtown Roswell, New Mexico. So the famous Aztec crash, 36 degrees, 47 minutes north. So if you travel east, eventually you'll find yourself on the southern border of Haran, the mysterious ancient city where ancient UFO cult of the Mandaeans was born. Legend has it that a Babylonian king, Nimrod, famous architect, Tower of Babel legend, originally established his mysterious citadel. Now, the famous Kursberg PA crash took place 44 degrees 11 minutes. That line would take you off the coast of Limos, where others were taken and thrown into the ocean from Olympus, and that's a good splashdown point as any. Finally, Area 51, allegedly at 37 degrees 15 minutes north. Following that line east would take you to the heart of Sicily, ultimate birthplace of ancient Euclidean mysteries. Why is it? Because Sicily is where Persephone was abducted by Plato, king of the underworld, a story that made a tremendous impression on the would-be Area 51 and the producer Chris Carter. Sicily, primary cult center for Persephone in the ancient world. And also note that Plato is identified with craftsmen and possessed a helmet that resembled a kind of cloaking technology that they're working on at Area 51 now. So, Plato was a demiurge, demonic, many-headed magus, an enchanter, fashioner of images, reflections, a shape changer, shape shifter. He could change himself and others. And of course Lucifer took on many of his attributes in the Christian folk mythology. So remembering the parallels between all of these things and the mysteries of Isis, we should note that 51 is 3x17, 3 times 17, the date of Osiris's death, Lamentations of Isis. Osiris would be removed by Isis and his place as Lord of the Underworld. So, I don't know about you, but it's 1 or 3 too many coincidences for me to just swallow. Too many things. So I've been trying to get to the core of this Lucifer archetype, which begins with Milton's epic poetry and brings us to the poems and dramas of the Greeks, wrote of Titan and Prometheus. Both stories have to do with a fall. In Milton's case, Lucifer's fall from heaven, leading to the fall of man, told in the Bible. These, in turn, reflected in the Prometheus stories, with his daughter-in-law, Pandora, who later was blamed for unleashing evil, but it was actually in the ancient stories her husband who stole it. A jar filled with evil spirits, loosed on the world. And how strange that both traditions would have a feature story that such a great deal in common. That somehow the story was changed and the first woman was blamed for the fall from grace. But even in the modern stories, she was tricked by some powerful being. Both stories, there is a warning by a supreme being. Adam and Eve were warned by Yahweh not to eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, good and evil. Prometheus, who I believe was quite Luciferian supreme being, pre-Proto-Greek people, warns his brother and his wife not to accept a gift from Zeus, who we've seen pretty much as a complete a-hole. And it leads me to believe there's a common source for both stories. The question is why this seems to resonate with what's happening right friggin' now in the world. Oh, look, it's the Sumerians again. Because tracing Prometheus' archetype back, you end up at Sumer. It became obvious that Prometheus had a direct and powerful antecedent in a mysterious and secretive god who was, quite significantly, not only associated with light and fire, but also intellect. And he was also associated with metalworking and mining. Very important clue in unraveling. What's more, I became soon to believe rather strongly that the fall was based on something very, very real, an event that rocked the ancient world to its foundations and became the stuff of legends for thousands of years. And it's being played out now. And I believe this event represented a trauma in which the entire people felt utterly cut off from their gods, an act for which, given their power religious traditions, they naturally blamed themselves. An event that wasn't just political or social, but a cosmic one. This was a trauma that would depose many highly placed officials, giving us extremely compelling precedent for the fall of a rebel, the Watchers, now called. Accounts of this time proved this fall would send some of those men and women into the wilderness, just like Adam and Eve were. And perhaps most significantly, I believe that the serpent in the garden and Prometheus are both based on opposing figures in the exact same drama. This is very much a work in progress. In fact, this demands a lot, but it's important. I don't want to sit on it because I feel like it's going to explode beneath me if I don't take the lid off this thing right here and right now. The Sumerians may not have been the world's first highly advanced civilization. They seem to be the one we have dependable records of. Other ones, probably older, had other devastations. So it may well be that they preceded by even more advanced civilizations. These have been lost. In fact, that would plug a lot of holes in the stories I've been telling you. What continues to boggle my mind is how long the Sumerians remained hidden from history itself. They were only discovered in the mid-19th century, which opens the door for further discoveries down the road. But for now, let's stick to what we know about them. The Sumerians, the Chaldeans, that they were the first to engage in large-scale irrigation, agriculture, like that. The first to live in a populous urban setting that we call city-states. The first to develop stratified societies with specialized occupants. The first to organize and maintain standing armies. The first to develop mathematics, writing. The first to propagate laws and formulate the concept of property. What the Sumerians were, most of all, extraordinarily religious people. Maybe the most religiously obsessed people in history. And they were directly opposed to what was going on in Kemet at the time, who was against pretty much all the things I just told you about. But I would argue that the Sumerian religion continues to this day, maybe in a way that we haven't seen or wouldn't notice, but it's them. Because you can trace many of our superheroes, our sci-fi troops, back to Sumerian myths. And then you also have millions of people who've read Sitchin or watched Ancient Aliens, not to mention the effects Sitchin's work had on many conspiracy theories, books like Ike and others. And I've seen with other cultures a sky god emerged from the pack, became top dog in Sumer. Like the rest of them, he was kind of a dick. Sorry. So sometime around 2500 BCE, Enlil became the greatest of gods, the god who punished people. Vulnerability lay in its disunity. The city-states often warred over resources, over trade. Because of this, a strongman, a Lugal, a titan, if you will, stepped into power, that vacuum, and attempted to create a united Sumerian empire. The Lugal, Zagi, conquered Sumerian cities of Ur, Larsa, Gursu, Lagish, and possibly others. Eventually brought them all under cities, all the cities of Sumer under his control. His efforts at unification carried a heavy price. Soldiers sacked opposing cities with a ferocity that shocked people of that time. Brutality was seldom seen in ancient warfare, but that changed. The violent sacking of a city and sacrilegious looting of the temples had been condemned before this, but this changed forevermore. This may, in fact, be historically accurate. However, given what would soon happen to the Lugal Zagesti himself, this may have, in fact, been war propaganda written by a powerful enemy like we see now. In any event, this fact will be a major clue to unraveling what comes next. At some point, this Lugal made Uruk his capital city. Uruk. It's often stated that he conquered the city, but this is unlikely. As it happens, the Lugal would soon meet his match. Sargon of Akkad reigned in Mesopotamia from 2334 to around 2279 BCE. He was born an illegitimate son of a changeling, their name, which would refer to a temple priestess of the goddess Inanna, whose clergy were, well, androgynous. These are the old beings. They were both. Now, according to the Sargon legend, he never knew his father, so he actually may have been created via parthenogenesis. This may have been one of the beings who is both and can self-procreate. I know it sounds weird, but we still have animals that can do it. Plants, too. So anyway, his mother could not reveal a pregnancy or keep the child, so he was set adrift by her in a basket on the Euphrates River, where he was found by a man named Aki, who was a gardener for Zababa, the king of the Sumerian city of Kish. Yeah, Moses. Same story, but biblical borrowing is what this is all about. The borrowing of perhaps everything we've ever heard is about this. But in any event, Sargon's empire would stretch from Persia, the Persian Gulf, to the Mediterranean, Iraq, and the Levant. Strangely enough, Sargon came to be considered the greatest man who ever lived, celebrated in glorious tales down through the Persian Empire. Historians talk about this, too. This great man of Mesopotamia, saying for at least 1,500 years after his death, Sargon the Great, father of the Akkadian Empire, this goes into what's going on now, was regarded as a semi-sacred figure, patron saint of all subsequent empires in the Mesopotamian realms. So let's go back it up. Sargon caught the eye of Ur-Zababa, who made a young gardener his cupbearer, which is essentially the king's right-hand man. What should be noted is that not only was Sargon just a gardener, he wasn't Sumerian, he was Akkadian, kind of a second-class citizen in the city-states at the time. Any event, Zababa chose poorly. Sargon began to accumulate power for himself and lose the Lagals blitzkrieg kind of thing. He chose the blitzkrieg to make his move, kind of. Zababa didn't seem like much of a Lagal. It said that he sprinkled his legs when he heard Zagala's army approached. So he beat himself. Zababa had grown suspicious of Sargon, decided to send him to the Lagal with an offer of peace. Whether Zababa actually included in the message anything about terms, conditions, it's not known. What is known is his message asked the Lagals to kill Sargon upon receiving it. For whatever reason, the Lagal refused to comply, instead inviting Sargon to join him. Together they marched on Kish, took the city, and Ur-Zababa escaped, went into hiding. So remember this story. Sagasi would spare Sargon's life, make him a brother in arms. He'd live to regret that decision. It's unclear why exactly the two fell out. But make note of the first possibility. It's possible that Sargon had an affair with the Lagazi's wife at some point, and that he was sent out on a mission which turned into the first engagement of his own conquest. Whatever happened, him and the Lagal, they were quickly antagonists as they were coming allies. Now pay close attention to what happened next. The devil, as always, is in the details. The Lagal marched his army from Kish to meet Sargon in battle and was defeated. Sargon put him in chains, tied a rope around his neck, took him to the city of Nippur, sacred to the god Enlil, who was a person, upon whom the Lagal had relied, and forced him to march in humiliation through Enlil's gate. A Lagal, a giant, bound in chains to appease a sky god. Why does that sound familiar? Oh yeah, because that's Prometheus' story as well. Symbolism doesn't stop there. We'll see. Later, remember that Nippur is believed to be the Garden of Eden. One detail you see in biographies of Sargon's alliance with Inanna, which Sargon's poet, propagandist daughter, Enki-Dwana, was keen to make famous. However, Sargon's alliance with this goddess was the key to his military victories. So she too, a person, at least perhaps, is in fact a reference to Sargon's relationship with the Lugal's wife, who is regarded as a physical incarnation of Inanna. If Sargon did in fact form a pact with Zagazi's wife, romantic or political, it would go a long way to explaining why these allies became enemies and how a gardener turned cupbearer was able to defeat a more experienced warrior. There was a spy in the house of love, as it were. Whatever the case, the Sumerian dynasty fell hard to Sargon's Akkadians. This was not only a political disaster, it was a crime against the order of things. In this kingdom, the Sumerians rapidly found themselves living as foreigners in their own cities. When Sargon took over a city, it became Akkadian stronghold, staffed with Akkadian officials, garrisoned with Akkadian troops. Foremost Chaldean and Sumerian researcher Samuel Noel Kramer believed the fall of the Sumerian dynasty to Sargon inspired all the lamentation poetries, which later calamities inspired as well. That Enlil called the storm, the people mourned, winds of abundance. He took the land, the people mourned. The winds took away Sumer, the people mourned. You get my meaning. So make note, Kibil's role as Enlil's helper. It's unmistakable here that Sargon is the devil. The devil went into the garden. The devil talked to the wife, led her astray. So, remember that Sumer also meant the land of watchers. And civil war was in fact of life throughout Sargon's reign. Afterwards, in his Sargon's old age, all the lands revolted against him. They besieged him in Akkad, and Sargon went onward to battle, defeated them. Sargon's empire was short-lived. Actually, it suffered a famine, gave way to an invasion to the east. I would argue that this, in turn, would open the door for Sumerians to return, maybe presumably from exile, re-establish Sumerian empire, like the story of the Jews that we are told is true. Anyway, it gives us the Epic of Gilgamesh significantly. And I argue that you will find references to political struggles taking place in Sumer in the Greek myths, in the Roman myths, but particularly those of Prometheus, where it doesn't friggin' belong. And this is the fall again. It's been well established by now that the Bible is based on all Sumerian antecedents. Reading the story of Sargon, the Sumerians, I'm willing to bet, we're looking at the usual suspects that you might see on other websites, excerpts from the Anu, Elish, and so on. I think Sargon's terror inspired a whole host of Bible stories, obviously the Moses thing, not at least the fall of man. I believe the fall of man is based on a yet undiscovered or unpublished Sumerian analogy, the retold story of Sargon and the Lugal Zagisi, and the Lugal Zagisi's wife, Eve. So let's go through some bullet points. Adam and Eve, the creation myth, based on Sumerian antecedents, something that happened. Garden of Eden is believed to be based on Nippur, the holy city of Enlil. Sargon began his career not as a soldier but as a gardener. Ergo, Sargon is the serpent in the garden of the gods. Historians believe Sargon had some kind of relationship with Legel, Zagizi's wife. She may in fact be Inanna, that we heard so much about. When Sargon defeated Lugal, Zagizi, he paraded him in front of Enlil's gate, in chains, naked. Sumerians were defeated by Sargon, took the mountains, the wilderness, to wage guerrilla war on his army. Without the extensive agricultural infrastructure of Sumer, to rely on the rebels would fend for themselves, perhaps even making their own clothes. Nippur would have been protected by a formidable army. The Bible story calls them the cherubim. You're probably familiar with the parallels between Genesis and the Sumerian accounts, the creation of man, so I won't go into that. But I should remind you that Eden is a Sumerian word, and it refers to the sacred plain. And you can look that up at Wikipedia. Eden, Sumerian term. More importantly, the Garden of Eden is said to come from Sumerian, the stories of the Garden of the Gods, exactly the location of which is, again, crucial to the story I'm decoding here. The myth of Enlil and Ninlil opens with a description of a city of Nippur, its wells, its river, canals, the well, portrayed as the home of the gods, and according to Kramer, seems to be conceived as having existed before the creation of man. Nippur was a city inhabited by gods, not men. This would suggest it existed from the very beginning. Also noted that a ritual garden was recreated in the Grand Garden of Nippur, most probably a sacred garden of the Ikur, or the Dur Anki. Temple complex is described in a cult song of an Enlil as the garden of heavenly joy. Now, if we accept Sargon as a serpent in the garden, not a stretch or leap by any standard, then theories amongst some historians that he had a relationship with the Lugal, his wife, the queen, the first amongst women, that would have been her title, makes perfect sense in the context of the serpent's seduction of the first woman, which many commentators have seen as sexual connotations. And we've heard that a lot. You shall be as gods. One can imagine Sargon saying exactly such a thing to Zagizi's wife in his quest to enlist her to his cause, to his empire-building crusade. And here is the cut that so wounded the Sumerians. The cosmic order was challenged by an upstart, and nothing ever was the same again. This next passage is curious. Aprons were used in ceremonial garb throughout the city, particularly Mesopotamia, so the fruit of the tree seemed to have a rival connotation here that many commentators seem to overlook. And when the woman saw the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took the fruit thereof, and did not eat it, and gave it also to her husband. He did not. They were eyes of both of them opened. They knew they were naked, and they ate, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. Interesting now, remember Sargon and the Lugal were once allies, so their eating of the forbidden fruit at his behest makes sense. Represents an agreement of some kind, or perhaps even more interesting kind of relationship. But as history records it, it ends up with Adam being called out by God and his nakedness exposed. We'll continue with this next week. Hope you enjoyed it. And we'll go into the gods, because they're